All right, guys, this video here is to show you how to use V-Carve and make the cuts that we need to on our board. So I have cut my wood to 8 by 11. That's the size I was going to make my cutting board. So what I need to do now with this video is prepare my trench and prepare the hole that I'm going to include, kind of like a handle is kind of my thought process on it. So I'm going to show you how to do these things so you're going to do these as well. Okay. First and foremost, you're going to need to use the V-Carve software on your computer. You're probably going to have an icon that's on your computer already. If not, like mine, it might be down here on the menu. Or if you go into that Windows button and you just start typing V-Carve, it'll come up. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to first have to set up the dimensions. So go to Create New File. And the dimensions of your board is what you came up with. So mine is 11 inches wide, and my board is 8 inches tall, and the thickness of my board, and this is very important when you're doing yours, is a little over 1/2. So I'm just going to say 1/2. Okay, so 0.5. Go ahead and hit OK. None of the other stuff matters, but here we go. Here's our working space. So I'm going to move myself over here. Ooh, dizzy. Okay, so now that I know my space, there's two things we have to do. One, we have to create the trench around the outside. We'll do that first, and then we're going to create the hole. So we are going to want to put our trench in 1/2 inch into the wood. Okay, you may want to make it a little more. I wouldn't go more than an inch in. I'm just going to do 1/2 inch in for my design so you guys can see the final product. So you can follow along with me if you want to do the same thing. Remember, you need to know your dimensions though. Oop, moved again. They're all down here in the bottom left corner. So we're going to start by creating a square. So I'm going to go ahead, a rectangle. I'm going to find where center is. And I can find where center is because you can see these lines that are made when I move the mouse. So center X is 5.5 and Y is 4. So I'm going to go over here to X and I'm going to change to 5.5. So that's half of 11. And 4, which is half of 8. I want to have a rounded edge on the corners. So I'm going to do a radius external. So it kind of looks like this corner. Radius internal would make it look like that, but I want the external. I just want a nice rounded off edge. So I'm going to use 1/4 inch for how far it's going to curve in that corner. The next thing I need to know is the actual dimensions of my rectangle. So since I said I'm going to go in 1/2 inch, I know that my rectangle, my piece of wood is 11 inches by 8 inches. So if I go in 1/2 inch, that would be 10.5, and my height would be 7.5. Now, if I hit create and I did it right, you'll see the lines show up here on the screen. Okay. Now we need to create a second rectangle because we need to have the thickness around marked off on here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then keep the X and Y still centered. I'm going to keep the 1/4 inch radius, but this time I'm going to go in another 1/2 inch. So now I'm going to change 10.5 to 10 and 7.5 to 7. And I'm going to click create. And there is my second line. So I can close this out. Now I have my two lines. Everything worked out perfectly. The next step of this is we have to tool these lines. So we have to put the right tool with it so it cuts it out. So I'm going to highlight this just like that. I'm going to go to Toolpaths. And for us to clean out this rectangular shape, what we need to use is this Pocket Toolpath. So I'm going to click Pocket Toolpath. And then from here, we need to set our depth. Now the starting depth is going to be at 0, which means it's starting at the top of the page or the wood. Okay. And we want it to cut in. The depth we want it to cut in is just 1/10. Okay. So I'm going to do 1/10. Actually, you know what? I'll do 0.15. Okay. That's how deep it's going to go in. Now for this to work, we only need one tool. So what I'm going to do is down here, we have all these different tools. I'm going to remove these and I'm going to show you how to add one. So what I want to do is click select, and we're just going to use an end mill. So it's just a flat bit that cuts down, and we're going to use a 1/4 inch bit. Okay. It's a 1/2 inch wide, so we would need to make basically 2 swoops with that 1/4 inch bit. So that's the one I want. So I'm going to click select, and then I'm just going to move myself out of the way here, go back to Toolpaths, and I'm going to name this Singer, my last name, Trench. I'm going to want you guys to do the same. So yours would be whatever your last name is, and Trench. Now I'm going to go ahead and click calculate. And to check to see if it works, we go up here to where it says toolpath color, and let's pick a nice color. I'm going to pick pink. I'm going to slow the speed down, and I'm actually going to watch it cut it out for me so I can see what this is going to actually look like. So if we watch, we can see that it's starting to cut it like it would be, and it's going to go around once. Now it's going around twice to clean out that 1/2 inch. And I don't want to sit there and watch it forever, so I'm going to speed it up. And that's what it's going to look like. Okay. So that is 1/2 of the tools that we're going to need to do. Now I'm going to go back to 2D view, and I am going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to want to put in my hole, and I'm going to do an ellipse, and I'm going to put it over here. Okay. You can pick any design. You see all the designs here, but honestly, circle, ellipse, rectangle, those are probably the easiest ones to use. But I'm going to use an ellipse. I think that kind of looks cool. So I'm going to move myself over here again, and I'm going to find a spot where I want to kind of make it. So I do want to have it about halfway. So I know that I want to make my Y 4 inches. So I'm going to set my Y at 4 inches. That's centered. And I'm going to determine how far I want to go in. I'm going to pick a number that's easy, but let's say I go 1.5 inches. I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. Maybe I'll go to 2 inches. Now I'll go to 1.5 inches. Okay. So my X is going to be 1.5. Okay. So that's where my starting point of my ellipse is going to be. So 4 and 1.5, somewhere in here. So now as far as the width that I want with this, I really only want it to be, let's say 1.5 inches. Right now it's set at 10 inches. Let's do it at 1.5 inches. The height, I want it to kind of go 2 inches both ways. So 2 plus 2 is 4 inches. So I'm going to make the height 4 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and hit create. So that is the hole that it made. I think it looks nice. It's um, pretty close to where I have the trench. So if I really wanted to, what I could do, and I'm going to do this again, I'm going to go here and change the width to 2 inches so I can look at both of them. Oops, sorry, not 2 inches. I want to make it a little smaller, so I'm going to do 1 inch. Okay, so those are our 3 different ovals. Now let's say I looked at them and go, no, I don't like any of those. That one was probably the nicest one, but I want it to move back a little bit. So if that's the case, we can just click on them and click delete. Let's do the ellipse. This time I'm going to change the starting point to be 2 inches and 4 inches. So the center is going to be about here. Now if I do that and I keep it at 1.5 inches and I go ahead and hit create, that's what I got. Okay, so looking at that, it's probably a little too far in. So I think I'm going to stick back to 1.5 inches. Okay, and we're going to create another one and see what that looks like. That's the one I'm going to stick with. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close. And I'm going to take the circle I don't want and I'm going to delete it. Now we have to tool this line. So what we have to do is we have to highlight just this part. So you can just click on it. I'm going to move me back over here. Whoa. And now I'm going to go to Toolpath. And for this one, we're going to want a profile toolpath. What the profile toolpath do is it will actually cut it out all the way. And it's gone. So I'm going to click on that. First thing I want to see is I want to keep the end mill a 1/4 inch. Okay, same bit. We're not going to change anything on that. Our tooling is really easy then. Okay, so for the depth, what I want to do is, I know it's a 1/2 inch thick piece of wood. I'm going to go a little further than a 1/2 inch, and I'm a little more than a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to say 0.6. Okay, so now that I have that set, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to rename it from profile 1 to, again, my last name, Singer. and this one will be hole, Singer hole. Now it gives me a warning, hey, you're gonna cut through this piece of wood. And I wanna cut through the piece of wood, so I'm gonna hit okay. And again, I can go over here to Toolpath. I'm gonna change the color to yellow. I'm gonna hit play and it's gonna show me how it cuts. Okay, now when I look at this, what do you notice about the hole and the trench? It's right on top of each other, right? So I'm gonna need to um, move my hole back a little bit. So this happens. So we're gonna click on hole, we're gonna click delete, and we're gonna delete this item. And now we're gonna go back to 2D and we're gonna delete this ellipse. So I'm gonna go back to the ellipse, and this time I'm gonna change it to 2 inches for the X, 4 inches for the Y. I'm gonna create that 1.5 by 4 inch hole. Again, I still think it's a little far in, but I think it's gonna be okay with what I have based on the bit that I have. Actually, what I can do is find the happy medium, 1.75. That's gonna leave a little 1/4 inch in between them. Okay, so I'm gonna delete that. Again, highlight it, go to Toolpath. I gotta close this. Pick that pocket. Everything should still be set the same way I have it. I'm gonna call it again Singer hole. Calculate. Yes, I know I'm gonna cut through. And let's do blue this time. And let's run it. And we'll see that it still has that other hole there, which is kind of annoying, but we can see now that we have our gap. So I have it the way I want it to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save my toolpath onto a flash drive. I have the flash drive plugged in because I asked my teacher, and my teacher brought the flash drive over. I'm waving my hand. Ooh. Yes. Can I put this on the flash drive? Yes. Let's take a look at your design. Looks good. Yeah, here's your flash drive. Thanks. Okay. So I'm going to plug in my flash drive, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the Singer Trench. I'm going to hit the Save Toolpath. I'm going to make sure that everything here is CNC Shark. That's what we're cutting with. USB and inches. So I'm going to save that toolpath onto that flash drive. This is the flash drive I'm using. Oh, it's not going to let me save there. I'll have to save it somewhere else for now. I'm just going to save it on the desktop. Okay. I'm going to close that. I'm going to click in Singer Hole. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to save the file. And then I'm going to take this over to the CNC machine and cut it. Now, if you make mistakes here, we're not going to fix them. We're going to try to catch them before we do it. But if it doesn't cut right, like you saw with the first design here, it's going to cut your wood. You're going to have to start over. So you have to make sure your designing is exactly how you want it to look like on here before we run it. But that's it. That's how we set up our hole. We set up our trench, and now we can take it over to the CNC machine and actually cut it. And I'll show you a video of me actually cutting this over at the CNC machine. So if you got any questions, don't forget to ask myself or Mr. Harris.